Nope, this isn't some AI generated footage. I am actually driving the production intent Tesla Cybertruck. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what it's like to drive. I'm going to tell you if it's a proper truck, and we're going to hear the full, presumably quite tortuous development story from the head of engineering and the head of design. Yep, that head of design.
Oh my God. Well, maybe that was a little too hard.
By the end of this video, you'll know everything there is to know about one of the maddest vehicles ever made. Is it all hype or actually revolutionary? Either way, I'll be able to help the millions of you that have put down a $100 deposit for one of these decide whether you should buy one or ask Mr. Musk for your money back. But first, we're in Hermosa Beach, Los Angeles, just a stone's throw from Tesla's design center, because above all, this vehicle has been designed to get a reaction. The Cybertruck is a rolling sci-fi film prop from the dark recesses of Elon's brain that makes little sense, but takes edgy and wedgy to a whole new level. If a DeLorean and an F-150 Lightning got jiggy at the drive-in, this is what would pop out. So we need to take it to the good people of America and find out if it's a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Did you put down your deposit like right when it was announced?
Absolutely.
Or straight away? So you must be quite high on the list.
Yeah, we should be on the list.
Deliveries start at the end of this month.
So it's really going to go forward.
You're going to have to make a decision with that Rivian.
Yeah, no, we bought it just because we were tired of waiting. We thought maybe it's never going to happen. But no, we would keep it. Maybe we'd keep the Rivian, maybe we'd sell it, but we might just take on the truck as well.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm an 80s baby, so it looks like one of those like McDonald's toys, not necessarily, but you know, like we used to get the little toys and vroom, 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 and then they started to upgrade them, and then you pull it back and then zoom off.
I know the ones.
That's what it looks like.
So it's so beautiful. Oh my God. I mean, just to look at it. So I had some people, they were like asking me like why I got excited. I said, are you kidding me? I said, name something even close. You know, when you were younger, you thought, oh, flying cars, you know, maybe this and that. This is the actual next step.
I'm gonna have to get used to this. But I'm a stockholder in the company though, so thank you.
All he cares about is his investments. Tesla Inc.
Yes.
I think it'll never see the light of day.
This first delivery's end of this month. This is the production truck.
We'll see. I've been doing that from Elon for 4 years.
Do you have a deposit down by any chance?
No. Not on this. It's cool looking. My cousin gets it.
Well, that was nice and relaxing, wasn't it? Admittedly, this is an affluent beachside community in Los Angeles. It'd probably be quite a different story if you took this thing to middle of nowhere America, where truck is religion and function comes way, way before form. Speaking of which, you're probably gagging for some techie headlines. The version we're driving here is the circa $100,000 top spec tri-motor version known internally as the Beast, with 2 induction motors on the rear axle and a permanent Magnum motor on the front. The dual motor is also available, and eventually a single motor rear-wheel drive model will follow. Significant inflation from Elon's original claims of a $40,000 starting price. This tri-motor has over 900 horsepower, can do 0 to 62 in under 3 seconds, and can tow up to 5 tons. It also weighs over 3 tons and has a 123 kilowatt-hour battery, Tesla's biggest yet, with a range of around 325 miles. That's roughly in line with the Ford F-150 Lightning, although Tesla will offer a 50 kilowatt-hour extender pack that bolts into the bed and takes away some cargo space, but extends the range significantly. The powertrain, which runs on an 800-volt architecture, a Tesla first, will charge it up to 350 kilowatts if you can find a V4 supercharger, and is entirely designed and built in-house by Tesla. It's also nearly 6 meters long, and you've got a just over 6 feet load bay, which means this thing is shorter than an F-150 but has a longer load bay back there. However, that's not to say that this thing feels petite. Even in America, where everything is supersized, it does feel like you're driving around in a tank. Quite literally, because you've got that armored exterior. But that's not to say that it's difficult to drive, because this is what electric does. It masks mass. You've got all that torque, the way it just peels away from a standstill just effortlessly. It doesn't feel like a big, cumbersome, difficult car to drive. And the ride, it rides really quite nicely actually. It has that kind of cushioned thump that you get with big, heavy vehicles like this. And you'll notice there's also something very clever going on with the steering. So it's entirely steer by wire, and we've got four-wheel steering for the first time on a Tesla. Now, we know how that works. At lower speeds, the rear wheels turn anti-phase, as in the opposite direction to the front wheels, and what that does is tighten up your turning radius. So this car, despite its size, actually has the same turning radius as a Model S. And then when you're at high speeds, so somewhere between 40 and 50 miles an hour is the transition point, then the rear wheels actually turn in phase with the front tyres to give you added stability when you're doing quick lane changes and stuff like that. The other thing is the steering ratio. It's completely variable, but it never requires more than 170 degrees of lock in either direction. In other words, you never need to rotate the wheel fully, and what that does is it gives the car a really over-caffeinated, energetic front end. So when you first get in it, it doesn't compute really, because you're used to these big heavy trucks having slow, cumbersome steering, but actually just a flick of the wrist and the front end of the truck darts away. It doesn't really add up. It takes some getting used to. I'm still, if I'm honest, trying to get my head around it, because you think this thing's going to require big armfuls of lock, and actually the point is you never need to take your hands off the wheel. Here, let's see if we can demonstrate. Turning around, don't need to take my hands off the wheel. Hopefully I don't crash into that lamppost. Just avoided that parked car, and we're back straight. Pretty impressive. The feel, the sensation is bizarre. And let's face it, most big traditional pickup trucks like this feel pretty agricultural, whether it's the powertrain, whether there's rattles and squeaks and all sorts going on. It's all part of the experience, and people like that. This thing is just the complete opposite. It requires my brain to be entirely rewired. The thing that defines the Cybertruck though, that dictates how it looks and why it's been a total nightmare to engineer, and why it still remains to be seen if they can ever put this into proper mass production at their gigafactory in Austin, Texas, is the quite literally bulletproof stainless steel exoskeleton. To explain that and the project's many and varied hurdles, we need some expert assistance.
The brief for Cybertruck wasn't really a brief per se. It was a conversation that had started several years back about eventually Tesla needs to do a pickup truck. We started looking at kind of unpacking the pickup trucks in the market, right?
They all look the same.
Yeah, without the badging, they're all really similar. And we were realizing that from a kind of first principles perspective, not following what had already been done, but looking at what's the best way to create the strongest, most robust truck. We started going down a couple of venues that were unique, but not really dramatic enough. And working with Elon on this, kind of going in circles for a long time. Somewhat secretly started doing something just radically different than really simplistic, kind of a low resolution looking type truck. And in the early days of kind of finding this form and this idea, we had Lotus Esprit in the studio, and we've been looking at that. It was the submarine car. And then started looking at what else is in this planar theme, this really, in a way, simplistic, angular theme. And the stealth F-117, started looking at like the Countach. And as this kind of radical form started evolving, one day made a full-size model and had Elon walk into it and seeing it for the first time, the one down at the end of the studio, and he's like, that's what we're doing. And from there, the whole language came out, and from there we started
That's when I had
out.
sheer terror, right? I was like, oh God. When you look at that shape, and knowing the stainless steel had to be full hard from that was my brief. And then the additional bit that Elon threw in, that it had to drive like a sports car, but have all the utility of a pickup truck, we were just sweating bullets, because Elon wanted the first prototype in 90 days. And I think he did that to drive decisions, right? Like when you have 90 days to build a prototype, there's no time to argue. You just got to pick the best thing and go.
And that alpha that's down there, it took us, I think, 93 days. I think he said 180 first, and then we kept talking, and then it went to 90, and we were just like, okay, so we're done talking. Why did we pick stainless steel? I mean, it started, we had aluminum concepts, we had steel concepts, but Elon had been working with stainless on the Starship program. And obviously we share a materials leader between SpaceX and Tesla. And so I think he sort of fell in love with the fact that it is stronger and more durable and more dent resistant, more scratch resistant. And the actual stainless steel that we use, we actually call it we call it HFS, hard freaking stainless. But it's a special grade because when you get into the details of it, it's not as simple as just saying, okay, I'm gonna get this super hard stainless, because stainless is not stain proof. It does corrode over time, and so we had to add various elements to the mix to make it, corrosion resistant and also get that full hardness, and then also have just enough ductility that when we bend it, we didn't get like orange peel cracking. Turns out it's really hard to bend full hard stainless steel, so we actually had to invent how to bend it. It's actually a process called air bending. Actually float the tool on like an air hockey table, kind of where we blow really high pressure air, and that tool like floats over the surface. So it's not actually touching the surface when it's bending it. And like I said that, and it sounds really simple, but then to make that into a tool for manufacturing, it was a challenge.
But when we put the structure on the outside, we can eliminate structure on the inside.
That's true.
So by making it aluminum, we still would have required this inner structure that holds it all together. And so Lars was able to figure out how to eliminate all that and keep the overall mass down, because we're taking away unnecessary structure from the inside of the vehicle.
The trick in engineering was, how do you take the strength that's there and incorporate it into the needs you have for the vehicle? This sail panel, which goes from the C-pillar back out to the rear, it adds like 25% of the torsional stiffness of the vehicle. The torsional stiffness of a Cybertruck is like 45 kilonewton meters per degree. That's supercar level. You drive a F-150, it's like 10 or 15. It's all wobbly, but then when you drive it, that stiffness that we got from the exterior structure makes the truck feel like a car.
Like Lars says, there's no stamping like a traditional aluminum or a steel panel. So the stainless steel can bend in one direction. So we had to create, the plan view shape to get the, perfect proportion and perfect balance and not have the corners out by faceting the truck. So if you stand in front or rear, you can look down the body side, but you see there's 4 facets, the 4 panels that make up the curve, and the windshield is flat, the glass is flat. And when you have all these facets and angles like a diamond coming together, you get to some like challenging, awkward moments that we had to figure out how to solve. I think another point is the stainless, there's no hemming. So we're not wrapping the outer around the inner like in a traditional panel. All the edges are exposed. And so there's no wiggle room there. So we had to figure out how to, first of all, adhere the inner panels to the outer, and then also coin the edges so they weren't sharp or like abrasive or cut you or anything like that. And lining up all those non-hemmed edges is, it's a challenge.
So that all added to like the complexity, but they were just like new challenges. And then the cool thing about repairing it is, because it is just a scratch finish, depending on how deep you go or whatever, you just get some Scotch-Brite
buff it out.
Buff it out.
Yeah. All the other pickup trucks that we were looking at, the toughness is built like in the frame and the chassis, but the most exposed part, the paint, is the most delicate. It's the part that scratches first and dents most easily, and you have to repair all the time, especially if you're using it as a work truck or overlanding or whatever. So, the idea of putting the toughness on the outside and making it actually extremely tough, like bulletproof tough.
We can stop pretty much any handgun and anything that is subsonic, but if you get armor-piercing rounds or you have a bullet that's going faster than the speed of sound, that energy is going to hit it, with velocity squared in that tiny area it's going to go through. So yeah, you can definitely empty a whole clip from a Tommy gun, 9mm subsonic, but I wouldn't go around, claiming that it's fully bullet-proof.
And I think, going back to a little bit the brief as well, once Elon saw what we were doing, he's like, that's the future. The future should look like the future, not like harking on the past, right? So
there's a lot of new technology in this. There's a stainless steel. It's our first 48 volts. It's industry first 48 volt low voltage system. There's a 800 volt high voltage system, steer by wire. steer by brake. And all of these things add to the amount of risk in ramping. So, in an ideal case, maybe it'll take us, 12, 15 months to get to that rate, so end of next year. But it's only going to move as slow as whichever one of those things has the first problem. And then, at Tesla, I think we've gotten a lot better over the years at ramping. Model 3 was pain. No one ever asked us about Model Y ramp just because we just did it. We just revamped the new Model 3, and that was a couple weeks to ramp. So I think we're a little better, and we've learned from our production hell days.
Okay, we'll pause it there for a minute and let Franz and Lars cool their batteries, because we need to see how the Cybertruck holds up when you leave the city behind. Right, so I shall start by pointing out the bleeding obvious, that this car is absolutely obscenely rapid for something this large. I've driven both the Hummer EV and the Ford F-150 Lightning, and this is just on another level to both of those cars in terms of sharpness. In fact, there's a nice straight bit of road here and no one behind me. If I come to a stop, I'm in beast mode already. I push the brake hard and then push the throttle at the same time. This should engage cheetah mode, nose down, rear up, ready to launch. Oh, and off we go. No time to look at the fancy graphics, and I can't keep my foot in for much longer than that. I've done it before in fast EVs. It never gets old, does it? All the blood goes to the back of your body and you do feel a little bit sick. But in this, it's just a different type of experience, isn't it? Because it's a 3-ton pickup truck. It's not supposed to do things like that. It does beg the question, should a pickup truck be this fast? Does a pickup truck need to be this fast? No, of course it doesn't. Obviously it doesn't. But Tesla has made its calling card fast drag times, fast straight line acceleration, so it's not about to stop here. And in fact, on a car like this, all that torque and power might actually be quite useful, because if you're towing 5 tons behind you, it'll come in handy. Okay, so what about its behavior in the corners? Well, we got to start at the suspension. You've got this self-leveling air suspension with active adaptive dampers at all 4 corners. It's all very clever. It can lift the car up to a really quite high height for off-roading. It can lower it right down for access. All I know is clever things are going on underneath me, and the roll in the corners, it's much less than you expect. There's not much heave and lurch when you're under acceleration as well. It's not a sports car, this thing, obviously, but it does put traditional trucks in the shade. And then we get to the steering. So obviously when we drove this at town speeds, at low speeds, it took some serious getting used to. That variable ratio, the 4-wheel steering, it's a super alert, lively, direct rack, and my brain was still trying to calibrate it, if I'm honest. But here, at slightly higher speeds, it starts to feel more natural because you've got that variable ratio. It's not so alert, off center, and you really can start to clip along at quite a rate. The other big surprise is the stiffness in the chassis. One of the things that you accept when you're driving a traditional truck is the fact that it's going to be a bit rattly and a bit wobbly, and when you hit a big bump like this bridge we're coming up to now, you get a shudder through the chassis. But in this, we're in beast mode, so the firmer suspension setting, yeah, you get a bit of a bump, but not that big wobble that suggests looseness. It feels tight, it feels stiff, it feels car-like in that regard. And then there's the brakes. So the Cybertruck has regen when you lift off the throttle of 0.3 G, so that's slightly stronger than you get in something like the Model X. Personally, I like it. You can't switch it off, so you're stuck with it whether you like it or not. And the brakes themselves, well, they work great. I haven't had any issues with them, despite this being a 3-ton pickup. That point between regen handing over to mechanical friction, I haven't spotted it. So big tick in that box. So then we come to the big question, is the Cybertruck actually fun to drive? Does it need to be fun to drive? I mean, people are going to buy these things in their hundreds of thousands because of the way it looks, because of the headline figures, because it's a Tesla, because when all's said and done, it is a practical truck. Does it need to be fun to drive? Well, this is the area I was prepared for this thing to fall down. They'd put all the engineering effort into the stainless steel exoskeleton, into making it manufacturable, and then maybe they'd forget about the chassis dynamics. But honestly, this is where I've been proved wrong. This is where the big surprise has come today on this road, where actually it's not just rudely fast to drive around on a windy B road like this, but it's actually good fun. And that's all down to body control, the acceleration, and just the way that it reacts to your inputs, it doesn't feel like a truck. It feels like a car. Before we go back to Tesla's design centre, while we're up here away from the rabble, let's have a proper poke around the inside. Okay, so the interior of the Tesla Cybertruck, and the best thing about this section is there isn't really much to it in true Tesla style. We've got a couple of Cyber cup holders, a couple of Cyber wireless phone chargers, a big storage bin in the middle here, a couple of seats, a bench in the back, and that's sort of about it. A lot of space down here for storing stuff. In front of me, there's a bit of a story. So this is called the Squircle. It's kind of a development of the yoke that they added to Model S and the Model X, except it's sprouted a top bar here, which makes it infinitely more usable, but still not quite as useful as a normal steering wheel. And to add to the annoyance, there's now no stalks, so you have to push these buttons left and right on the wheel. I have got used to it, but honestly, I don't know why they quite literally had to reinvent the wheel on this one. And here's a fun fact for you. In the center of the steering wheel, you'll notice there is a Cybertruck logo, this sort of triangular slice here. You will not find a Tesla logo on this car. You'll notice behind here, no instrument cluster. There is no screen behind here. Totally clean, unimpeded view of the road ahead, and it is a really good visibility from here with this enormous slab of glass over your head. But surprise, surprise, all the magic happens in one central screen. This one is 18.5 inches. In the Model X and the Model S, you get 17 inches, I believe, and you're greeted by this pretty fantastic graphic of your Cybertruck. And you can swing this around and you can play around. You can see the doors open because that's where the camera is pointing at me over there, but you can have some fun here. So if I click this button and click that, then you can open the tonneau cover in the back. I can even open the tailgate. I can even go crazy and open my frunk at the front of the car. Now you notice there is no rear view mirror here. That's because with the load bay cover in place at the back, rear visibility is effectively zero, but Tesla have thought of that. And if I put the car into drive, which is swiping forward over there on the little car, you'll see that this is your rear view mirror out the back. You can move it over here and have it a bit smaller, or you can have it here. And then you dive into the menus over here. So anyone that's driven a Tesla or owns a Tesla will be familiar with this setup, but there's a few subtle differences here with the Cybertruck. So this control section here, this is basically all your quick shortcuts for adjusting your mirrors, adjusting your steering wheel. It is a bit laborious when you just want to move the wheel up and down, but for the sake of having everything in one screen, that's what Tesla's decided to do. Now down here, the glove box. Oh, I like that. It's a very nice action indeed. The suspension, we talked about that as well. You can have it high, low, or entry when you're in on-road mode, and as I'll show you in a minute, you've got an off-road mode. So we go to the Dynamics tab. Here we go. We're in on-road. You choose your mode. We're in beast mode, of course. The interesting thing about beast mode, this is the equivalent of ludicrous or plaid. It's the most aggressive mode that you can have your Cybertruck in, but honestly, it's pretty usable. It's pretty livable with. If you don't mind the suspension a little on the firm side, then you could just drive beast all day long. And then underneath, you've got all the different attributes. And the moment you start playing with these, with how you want your acceleration, chill, sport, or beast, it flips to custom mode. You can choose your ride or handling, relaxed or focused, and your ride height, low or medium. Now, if we go into off-road mode, Tesla wants you to confirm that you do indeed want to go off-road in your Cybertruck. And the two big things here are Overland and Baja. Baja being the off-road fast desert racer mode. Yes, you can take your Cybertruck out into the dirt and really give it some. The engineers have been telling me about adventures they've had in Baja doing jumps, and the suspension's all set up for that, for soft landings, and it can take all the punishment you like. And as we mentioned before, you don't have a diff hanging down at the back, so the ground clearance is fantastic on this thing. Towing and hauling, of course, that's a crucial thing when it comes to the Cybertruck, and the rest, to be honest, that's pretty standard stuff from Tesla. Now, of course, it does beg the question as to whether having absolutely everything on a central screen is a bit too distracting. It's going to take some learning. Personally, we've had 2 days in the Cybertruck, and I could still do with a few more hours getting my head around how all the sub-menus work. But look, if there was ever a car that deserved a squircle, no instrument cluster, and absolutely everything to be controlled from a supersized central screen, it's the Cybertruck, isn't it? And on that note, back to Franz and Lars in the studio. Okay, so I did have a nice, neat list of questions ready for this bit of the interview, but we've just walked around the truck and there's a million different bits that I just didn't appreciate. And so let's just keep this just free form. We're just going to do a lap of the truck and just give us as much detail as you can about everything, starting with the fact that I've spotted a curve. How did that one get through?
One curve.
This sort of curved front bumper bit.
Well, the challenge was we had to make this truck aero efficient as well. And efficiency is, part of what we do at Tesla. All of our vehicles are the most efficient of their class, and Cybertruck needed to be the same way. More range is just better. And so,
most aerodynamic truck on sale?
That's right.
Most aerodynamic truck on sale of its size.
Most competitors, when they'll measure it, they'll just measure it in a straight line. But here at Tesla, we like to do that number with the rotating wheels because it does actually affect you when you're driving. No one drives without the wheels spinning.
Yeah.
And so we do a lot of work in the front corner and around the wheels and with Franz's team to make that super awesome.
Yeah, so this area here, which most of us will just sort of walk past in the street and not appreciate that the radius of this bumper and this sort of gap here is probably precision design.
It is actually, because we have the embedded team, we're working on these corners on a daily basis. And I think we were able to really successfully sneak in a few of these curves and help the airflow and created these gaps here that help the airflow up and over the tire, the curve that bends the air right around the tire.
And when we can't get a curve in design, we make them in aerodynamics. Right. So this actual shape of the front wheel arch here actually creates a positive pressure zone that pushes the air out. So it's effectively like there's a curve over this whole front end, and it just kind of gleans over the edge.
Yeah, and the tonneau, that makes a huge aerodynamic difference.
Yeah, it's about 10%, right? 10%, so same thing, the air comes back in and it spins around if you have a bed, and that happens on pickup trucks as well. But with our shape, you get up to that peak and it comes over, it's coming fast, it's gonna go to the low pressure area, which would be the bed. Yeah. Unless you have a tonneau cover, and then it just goes straight to the back.
Although I did notice you still got wing mirrors.
We do have mirrors.
Could have had another percent or two here.
Yeah.
We can, however, our U.S. regulations require mirrors at this point in time.
So there's something that we can have that you can't in the UK,
right,
which is cameras for wing mirrors effectively.
That's true.
Yeah. Right.
But we did put the camera screens in for the B pillars.
Yeah.
And if you want to put a tow mirror on or any other optional thing, you can bolt it off pretty quickly.
Okay, cool. Let's stay around the front quickly. So this windshield is enormous. That's got to be the biggest something of something, isn't it?
It is the biggest automotive piece of glass on the market. It's actually pretty big even for like architectural glass, We had to invest with our supplier in a new line, to make a glass that big. And as with everything, we wanted it to be super tough. So it's made out of borosilicate float glass, super smooth, super tough. And like it won't propagate chips, which is awesome.
No, and it looks flat. When you're dead on, it's effectively one flat surface from the front of the bonnet all the way up to the sort of peak of the triangle, if you like. But actually, from where I'm standing, there is just a little curve left to right on that.
Hint of a curve for manufacturing, so the glass doesn't collapse on itself.
Yeah.
And for sound, so like if you get a flat piece of glass and you're driving and there's wind on it, it'll go boom, 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 like a drum. Mm-hmm. But when you get that little curve, you kind of put the tension to the outside. Yeah. You get rid of that noise.
And this has to be the biggest windscreen wiper ever
It's definitely
made.
the biggest truck wiper, the biggest automotive wiper out there. It's just under 4 feet long. But we went with the single wiper because we wanted to keep it clean. Mm-hmm. We did talk about deployable wipers and a whole bunch of things, but turned out we actually were able to make that even more aerodynamic.
Even adds to the overall efficiency of the truck just
by
by having the arm there.
2-3 counts. Yeah. It rounds out the corner, and this whole shape here provides a little bit better flow on this side than that side. But.
Cool. Headlights. So I, for the first 20 minutes when I arrived this morning, I didn't actually notice that they're hidden.
This is a big signature lamp. It's DRL. It's one of the brightest on the market. But the headlights are actually hidden down here in the signature area. They're only about 15 millimeters tall, 15, 20 millimeters tall. And all of the light that you would need for driving on the road comes from here, which is actually better because it's lower to the road. Yeah. So you get more visual space out in front than you would if it was up here.
Okay, cool. You've also got a lockable frunk.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Front
Open
trunk,
that up.
fruit.
Front trunk space.
Which is actually pretty impressive, because if you look at the front overhang, it's absolutely tiny compared to more traditional trucks.
It's very small.
F-150s, which have just, they're out here.
They're out here somewhere. Yeah.
That's still a useful space.
Yeah, you can fit a carry-on in there or your grocery bags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got some room, and you can open it from inside.
Tailgate.
And you can sit in it.
Yeah, you can
Do you
tailgate.
fit?
Yeah, we both fit. And actually, the height of this was like designed so we could fit and sit, and you can get shade at the car park.
You do something called tailgating in the US,
Right.
don't you? We're not really into it, but
This is
you can sort of
perfect.
do
front gating.
front gating. It's a whole new sport. It's a whole new sport. It's basically just drinking and grilling meat, right?
That's right.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I can
There's
get
some
on board with
sports
that.
involved, but
it's sports. I'll talk about the wheels, because I thought when you did the original
prototype,
concept and the prototypes, they had these sections carved out of the wheels, and I thought, oh yeah, classic design concept style. They're never going to. But these are the production wheels, right?
These are production wheels, and the first thing we looked at was the moment you put something round on this vehicle, it just took it out of its futuristic state. So we knew right away that the caps had to have this angular, faceted feel. And if you stand back and you look at the caps, they're not round. It's kind of a square thing, and we designed the cap to ride the tire, and so the spokes stretch right out to the tread. It just makes the whole thing feel bigger, and it just feels incredibly futuristic. Our job is to take this concept that people now expect as like the future, and actually deliver to them. Give them the future.
Okay, all right. Well, let's keep coming down the side. Door handles, or lack of them.
At least in the body side, right?
Yeah. So the original, the 2019 concept, I seem to remember, did have them.
Yes.
And then you've been on a mission ever since to rid the world of car door handles.
Yes.
Those aero inefficient door handles.
The prototype had Model S door handles that
Pop
greet you when you approach the car. But now, because we can use BTLE, we can have the door actually greet you instead of the
The
handle.
door will open up like that when you come in, and you just grab it and open it. Super cool, but it's also super functional because if you get frozen or whatever, like door handles are a pain in the head to open, but the truck actually can break through a half-inch ice.
And we don't have to cut holes in them.
Yeah.
Which is easier to manufacture.
Cutting holes in stainless steel is annoying, right?
Yeah, it's hard.
Let's open up the door. I just want a quick look at the interior. We're not going to dive into the menu and play with all the modes.
Classic, had to make sure that the angular kind of character of the exterior of the truck made its way into the interior, so it felt holistic, although it's very comfortable.
Yeah.
Like the seats look incredibly angular, yet really comfortable, conform to your body. So.
Yeah, cool. Let's look in the back, because I think the rear seats do something cool as well. Oh, they're halfway up.
Oh, I'll get it.
All the way up. There we go. So you can chuck a load more stuff.
Yeah,
in.
like a truck is all about, it's like a Swiss Army knife. It's all about, how are you going to use it for what you need? And so it's our job to just make as much space as possible and make it configurable so you can use it. There's pockets, seats flip up. You could put, dog crates or.
And we really worked hard to make
big
the door
TVs.
open 92, right? Because you can have this big space, but if the door only opens to here, you can't use it.
Yeah, you can't put your thing in.
And then it's not quite 6 feet, but it is also pretty decent for sleeping.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I've been out on a few test trips where you'll find an engineer or two in the back of a truck just laying down.
The Tesla Cybertruck camper van. Although you did actually have a kind of roof tent on those
We do
initial.
have a roof tent.
Is that going to be?
accessory,
Is that
yeah.
going to be an accessory?
Yes.
I can't wait to see the accessories catalog on this.
It's pretty good.
It's going to be pretty good. Let's come around the back. Charging ports here.
Yeah.
Oh.
Cleverly integrated there. There it goes.
So this is another round thing, but this is our North American charging standards.
That's not nearly angular enough.
Hidden behind, in true fashion to what we do at Tesla, we've hidden all our charge ports in the lights. This one wouldn't go in the lights, so hid it away.
So it's got in the
It's got a nice seal here to keep it dry when you're off-roading. So right now on our V3 superchargers, they only go up 250 kilowatts, but on our V4 ones that just started rolling out, you get 350 kilowatts, so this will take all of it and it'll charge super fast.
350.
Yeah.
Wow. So that will charge in. I know we shouldn't think 0 to 100. We should think 20 to
15
80.
to 80,
Yeah, that kind of thing. But that'll take 10, 15 minutes, I suppose.
Yeah, that's right. It's about 18 to 20 minutes from 15 to 85. And then you lose that speed at the top.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Let's go back to truck things.
Truck things, tonneau covers.
Here we go. So is this...
Can stand on it,
Yeah.
but then it opens up to,
So you can stand on that.
yeah.
Is it going to be standard on every truck? Obviously, there's dual motor. There's eventually a
Single motor, yeah.
single motor rear drive one. So I imagine will it be an option?
Yeah,
on
right
those?
now it's standard.
Yeah.
I mean, as you said, it's super efficient on aero, and so like, you know, if we need it to get to the price point that makes sense, we'll do it. But like, it's super useful part of the truck, so it's something we want to keep.
Let's hit some buttons.
Yeah, so the tailgate comes down. You know, it's got a torsion spring, so you can push on it. We've got what we like to call our smuggler's bay. It's under bed storage.
Oh, there we go. That's where you put the contraband.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's right.
Yeah.
But extra space that we had, so we give it back. It's a 6-foot bed, so it's slightly longer than your 5.5-foot bed that you find on a traditional ICE pickup truck.
Yeah.
It's wider than 4 feet across. You'll notice there's no like big blisters or humps for the wheel arches, so it's super smooth and clean in here. Can fit 4x8 sheets of plywood, which is a thing here in the US. Gotta have that.
I love you're getting this. He's from the UK.
Slightly
He doesn't know what I'm
over-
talking about. But what about, is there electrical outlets
Yep.
so I can,
We're-
do my welding?
Yes.
Do my
That's right.
barbecuing?
You can
You can
weld.
barbecue, you can weld. There's a 220 and two 110s.
Yeah.
So we get 20 amps and 30 amps. So you can actually weld with this enough power.
Yeah.
The power conversion system is our first bi-directional system.
Yeah.
So you can get power out, you can put power in, and eventually with our new chargers at home chargers, you'll be able to go vehicle to home.
Power your house. This is a very functional bed. We put in an L-track system, so
Yeah.
this is like almost infinitely configurable to all sorts of accessories. We have tie downs everywhere.
all the tie downs.
And so this is an incredibly functional bed for anybody that's doing hauling stuff, gear, camping. You mentioned the tent. We have a whole accessories for camping and sleeping in here and making the bed.
Fantastic. I think I know the answer to this one, but would this have been possible with any other boss other than Elon?
Oh, hell no.
No.
And give us a flavor of what it's like to have Elon Musk as a boss. How does he operate? How often is he in here demanding sub 10 microns and demanding perfection? Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's wonderful to have a boss, especially at the CEO level, that understands physics and engineering. Because I don't have to dumb it down or water it down. We just talk like engineers about this is why I can't do this. These are the limitations, and I've said it before, but we go to the limits of physics and chemistry, and that's it. Anything above that is not allowed. Anything below that is not what Tesla does.
I realize you didn't mention cost there. It seems Teslas should be affordable and for everyone, right? But you're not really taking into account cost at the expense of the overall dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, cost is in every element of what we do, and I think it comes here a lot of times in integration and deletion. So some of the stuff we're talking up front on the aero fits, where you're not adding bits on, every bit you add on, that's $1, $2, $3. And so I really, on my team, and especially with you guys, we try to break Conway's Law all the time. So you can't tell who designed what and where one part ends. And when you get that integration, you delete those parts, you just end up with less costly.
Elon always says the best part is no part.
Yeah.
So we really adhere to that philosophy, and we try to just take out the parts. Or you mentioned that's a giant windscreen, but we could have made multiple parts, but then it's multiple parts.
Yeah, cool. Well, I think we need to go and find some guns, some axes, some arrows, some just general weapons, and start smacking this thing.
Go for it.
And now for the bad news. If you're watching this video anywhere other than America, you can't buy one. Pedestrian protection laws and the radius of those panel edges means it'll only go on sale in the US, for the time being at least. But if you are an American deposit holder, this bit's for you.
Okay, so we've just spent the full 2 days with the Cybertruck. I've literally just handed back the keys in there, which is Tesla's design center. And I did promise you that I was going to give you a verdict. So here goes. I'm going to have to break it up into little bits. We'll start with trucking. Is it a good truck? Yes, it is a good one. I especially like the lockable load area at the back. It does truck things well. How about a car? How about the handling? Well, at low speeds, it's not perfect. It's a bit overly aggressive on the steering and takes some serious recalibration to get used to that four-wheel steering in the variable ratio. But I'm happy to report when you get some speed under the wheels, then it starts to feel a lot more organic. The looks. It's basically from another planet, this car. I have never in my life driven anything that gets remotely the same amount of interest. But I will say this, the stainless steel exoskeleton panels, they're not car panels in the traditional sense, in the way that we know them from standard Teslas or every other car on the road. Catch them in the wrong light and you do see a bit of rippling down the side. In softer light they do look smooth and perfect, but you have to get used to that. And of course there's the raw edges which they've rounded off on each of the panels. But here's what I think. The Countach, all those years ago, it was Gandini getting bored of everything looking a bit the same and he wanted to shake everything up. That is what the Cybertruck is doing in these days. That's why it's so hard to get your head around it, because it wants to defy convention in absolutely every single way. If the Cybertruck was a supercar, the new Tesla Roadster, for example, with all its stainless steel exterior and wacky design, I think it wouldn't be quite as shocking, but it's because they've taken the most utilitarian vehicle on earth, the truck, that's just designed to do a job, and that's it. That's why it is such a shock. So if you've got $100 or 100 quid or whatever it is down on a Cybertruck, should you see it through? You've waited this long, should you actually buy one? Well, as long as you can stomach the fact that the prices have probably gone up a fair bit since you actually put that deposit down, then yeah, go for it. If you loved it then, you're gonna love it even more when you meet it for real.